PodcastCoug Season 7, Episode 2.
You are listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, where we're all things Cougar football, 30 minutes of Coug talk. We're talking about our thoughts on that Idaho game and our huge non-con against Wisconsin on Saturday. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is Season 7, Episode 2, and you know what? You got to take your hats off, and if you're not wearing a hat, grab a hat, right? Hats off to Coach Jason Eck, right? The head coach of Idaho. What a fun guy to watch on the sidelines, cheering him, giving support, just all riled up, and kind of reminds me of Rob Akey, right? So 24-17 loss to the Cougs. And, you know, the Cougs may have overlooked Idaho just a bit, just a little bit of an excuse. Is that really an excuse? Did we overlook knowing that we're in Madison on Saturday? Perhaps. Why not? I mean, why not? Okay, you're supposed to play one game at a time, but you know what? You think you're just going to show up and blow Idaho right out of the stadium, and you know what? They played, and hats off to Jason Eck, right? So Idaho was ready, right? And again, you know, Jason Eck had everything to play for and nothing to lose, right? Everything to play for. He just went for it, right? All of his guys, I mean, you're supposed to lose anyway, right? I mean, Idaho is, you know, they're going to make some noise in the Big Sky this season. And I think they've got a good coach in Eck. I really do. You know, our defense is everything advertised. And more this year. And we're going to talk about our edge rushers. They were great, you know, just the beginning. You know, can't wait to see, you know, Ron Stone Jr. and the edge rushers, Brendan Jackson and Ron Stone Jr. again, and Andrew Edson. You know, they all combined for 3.5 sacks, and, you know, putting the basically rotated like 6 edge rushers, you know, very effective, putting pressure on McCoy, their quarterback, Idaho's quarterback, and containing their running backs, you know, especially Brendan Jackson, who came away with one of the Cougs' 7 sacks, you know, and, you know, he had a steady presence in the backfield. So they've got to put in some tough spots here. They're strong up front, you know, caused some problems, of course, but I think the new additions with these guys, especially like Deion Henley and Jordan Lee, both from Nevada, really look solid. And the defense is as advertised, you know, offensively, not so. A little bit of sloppy, right? First game, we got to say, okay, what's the default? It's a first game and the jitters. That's just a default, you know. Let's hope we pick it up, right, on the offensive side. More efficiency, right? Efficiency is basically you're not going 3rd and 7. You're not in a 3rd and 8 position. You know, you are picking up that first down really easy. We've got to have efficiency on the offense. And I thought there were some misreads and some protection issues at times. You know, our offensive line is our weakness, right? So we know that, right? But when you have a new coordinator and a new quarterback and some new faces on the offensive line, and I don't think the expectations should be that the offense should be perfect in week 1. I mean, like I said, default the excuses. It's the first game of the year. But it is Idaho, and it's an FCS team, and they have less scholarships than we do. And, you know, our guys have bigger newspaper clips than they do, although I'll tell you, the Idaho is a great team, and they got a great coach. So biggest thing, you know, we went out there and we saw a great defense, and it was exciting to see, but we also had to think about that we are playing Idaho and we're expected to win, and we should win. You know, there's a big spread, things like that, but Idaho not only is a good team, a very good team, I feel that, to reiterate, Jason Eck had them jacked up, you know, on the sidelines, jumping up and down, kind of like that Rob Akey was, right? And so much energy. And remember, they come in with 0 to lose, expected to lose, right? I mean, nobody expected Idaho to win that game, right? But Deion Henley did great. He was flying around making plays. Deion, right? We knew Brendan Jackson was going to show up and do a great job, and he did. We'd like to see a little bit more Rod Stone, and again, I think that first game working stuff out, and so the offense a bit sloppy, and didn't fear Idaho coming into the game real well. Not a lot of big fear. We're talking about Cam Ward here. How do you think he did on the field? How do you think he did? Did he look great? What about, running out of bounds all the time? His numbers were nothing to write home about for a Pac-12 quarterback starter. A few good deep balls, a few good bullets. His presence in his pocket was interesting. Scrambled a lot, held on to the ball all day long, so made some reads, and he chose his moves accordingly, made some decisions. And, I don't know, the jury isn't out yet, right? Good guy, can throw the ball, is accurate, but we'll have to wait and see how things play out. The jury isn't out yet. And, So we were rolling on that first drive, very confident we're going and to score, and then boom, all of a sudden, freshman running back fumbles, and we fall out the series, and then we get the ball back, and first play we fumble and scoop and score, and then all of a sudden you're emotionally down. I mean, you're just emotionally down. This is Idaho, so it's not a good way to start, but you know what? A setback is a setup, and hopefully this setback, minor as it is, hopefully things will improve. You never know. I mean, it could be just a temporary hiccup, and with our as far as our offense is concerned, we'll see what happens, of course, in the next couple of games, especially on Saturday. And so, the guys, he's supposed to, everybody is, we're talking, what are we talking about? Cam Ward now, first quarter, second quarter, it felt like he was trying too much, moving the ball, scoring, too much was on his plate. He felt like he was pressured, and he was putting pressure on himself to light up the scoreboard, and so, that's what I see. The play calling there was some good maturity. I felt like Cam settled down in the second quarter. Certainly wanted to show that he's very talented and live up to the expectations, that everybody thinks he walks on water. And, I'm not so sure. I mean, he's good. He's a good quarterback. We'll see what happens, right? So, teams like Idaho, there's that expectation of winning, and you got to try to make things happen versus letting it come to you. And so there's glimpses of some really good things to come, but you can see that, there's timing here and a little bit more, we'll see what happens. It's all gonna unfold this Saturday as well. But Cam's ability to move is what we've talked about before regarding the air raid and the Coug raid, and we have a quarterback that can run. He absolutely is a difference maker. He picked up his 2 or 3 first downs on 3rd and long using his legs, which is nice. And but yeah. Some breaks down against the defense on the air raid. The guy can move, and I think his ability or skill is going to help this offense throughout the season. So again, I think that there's a lot here and a lot to think about. I doubt Cam's going back and looking at the tape. I'm sure he's looking at the tape and learning a lot. And Eric Morris, offensive coordinator, he's going to be able to teach off that tape, the digital tape, right? There is no tape. It's all digital, but they're going to have some teaching moments, and that's how you're going to get better, right? So it's a constant improvement, and heading into our week 2 with our matchup, you guessed it's the Badgers, Wisconsin in Madison. Speaking about the Badgers, we're going to be talking about Wisconsin, the game, next, right here on the second half of the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the PodcastCoug Radio Network. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
The real estate agent you work with matters, and a great agent helps you own the home of your dreams. And your dreams come true with James Laurie at Coldwell Banker Bain, representing clients like you 24/7, from condos to colonials and everything in between. If you're selling, buying, need a price analysis, or just a contractor referral, ask James, winner of the 2015 through 2019 International Coldwell Banker Diamond Award, with dozens and dozens of 5-star Zillow reviews, and Seattle Magazine's 5-star award winner for 2018 through 2020. James Laurie, Coldwell Banker Bain, at 425-466-3672. or jameslaurie.net. Rock solid results.
You're listening to the Podcast Coug.
Two running backs in with the quarterback. Signals called. All man in motion going through to the right side. Handoff. Wings out to the right. 5. Touchdown, Washington State.
You are listening to the Podcast Coug.
Welcome back to the second half of the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug, where we're all things Cougar football, all things Cougs. Cougs at Badgers, University of Wisconsin, Saturday. Of course, 12:30, Big Fox. That is national television, East Coast to West Coast, all day long. Coach Dickert, he's returning to his home state, right? The Cougs are going to play the most significant non-con in recent history. Wisconsin's rated, 18th, 19th in the country. Washington State, we're traveling to Madison. It's a college town. It's not as pretty, but it's a college town. They got a huge stadium at Camp Randall, 80,000 fans, one of the 50th largest sports venues in the world, actually, but kind of a classic stadium, big style, Big Ten. Badgers open up at a 17.5 favorite. They cruised last week 38-0, rout Illinois State, FCS. That was a home game. They piled up 221 yards, 148 and 14 carries. Superstar Braylon Allen just ripped it up, right? 220 yards, 14 carries, and quarterback Graham Mertz, he was 14 out of 16. The Badger defense allowed just 243 yards. You know, they're one of the nation's best defenses. They always have for the last 10 years. The Badgers compiled a 9-4 record last season. They were 9-4. They beat Arizona State in the Las Vegas Bowl. And, it's no secret that Wisconsin is going to rely on their ground game. Braylon Allen. I mean, this guy's going to be tough to stop. But they're going to be run heavy, very run heavy, and they average about 43 rushing attempts per game. That's about to wear most teams out. Last year, they were boasted in the top 25 on rushing attacks, in the country. And so they are really well equipped on the ground. Our defense front, though, seems really well equipped. This is a perfect match. I don't know about perfect, but it's an excellent match. We couldn't be having a better timing with our defense the way it is. The Palouse Posse, 1994. I mean, this is it. We've got an amazing up-front defensive line. No doubt the strongest position group with the Cougs. Our linebacker core is deep and talented as well. So the Badgers, they've got a history of NFL caliber talent year after year for a decade of their O-line and their running backs, and the Cougs, like I said, we got one of the top defensive fronts in the Pac-12, starting with our edge rushers, Brennan Jackson and Ron Stone Jr., are the most standout, disruptive, defenders. And we're going to see some amazing plays on the ground by Braylon Allen, He's a big guy. He's 6'2", 235 pounds, All-American, sophomore. And anyway, did great, again, last week against Illinois State. Granted, they're FCS. But, I mean, he's a big guy, a big dude, and, you just got to stop the run. That's where it's all at. You just got to stop the run. And stopping Braylon Allen, that's the bottom line. So the key will be holding their ground game in check and on early downs and force the Badgers to dial up some plays, with Mertz. Mertz, quarterback, third-year starter. He's a game manager quarterback. Usually isn't called to really spark the offense. He's just, again, he's not a big passer, if you will. But the Badgers' passing offense was really ranked 120th in FBS last year. So they are almost the last at their passing offense. So you're not going to see Mertz be throwing the ball downfield very often. And this is the last guy that would ever get a phone call from Leach, right? So anyway, here we are with the Coug Raid that we debuted last week. And we've got to sharpen up our passing game and find some cracks in their secondary, which have lost several key players to graduation last season. So, they had some standouts, Hunter, Wohler, And Hunter Wohler is out with a leg injury. He's a standout that is out. So we hope, we don't want who likes to get anybody hurt, but he's out. Badgers don't often face up tempo. They're not very pass heavy offense. So that really works in our favor, no doubt. Right. So the bottom line is with Wisconsin from a defensive perspective is that you've got 2 or 3 deep across the board, and you're not going to get worn down, period. We're not going to wear out, right? You're not going to wear out against their offensive line. That includes Braylon Allen. I mean, right? So he's going to make some big plays, but so are we, right? So we've got that Ron Stone Jr. and Brennan Jackson, and you've got Andrew Edson and Quinn Roth and Rom Stevenson, and, these guys. And then you've got, on the inside, you've got Nusi Milani, the transfer for Virginia, and Antonio Poulet. And, I mean, we could just go on and on and on. And, this is no Illinois State. So, I think they're going to be a little bit surprised. They just probably think that we're, really not a big threat coming into Camp Randall. Let's hope they're looking past us, but at least I think it's going to be super competitive, and no way, I mean, it's possible if we don't show up, but there's no way it's going to be a blowout unless Braylon Allen has a field day, okay? We've got just too many guys on our line, our defensive line, to have a blowout. So, and then you go back to our linebacker position, right? You've got, like I said, Deion Henley, and we've talked about him a lot, and we've got Francisco Maui'ingo. Did I pronounce that right? Francisco, it's Maui'ingo, right? Played well. And he's doing good, and Travion Brown, and so we've got some guys. Armani Marsh is going to be there, like I said, Travion Brown. So, Deion Henley, you've got 4 downs and 7 guys, and you got a box that you can tackle and be physical. And heck, you're right on the spot. So I think we've got a strategic advantage, and you're just going to have to be physical. I mean, we've got to be physical, and you've got to step up and play your best game. And I feel that it would be normally. I feel normally the scenario is. I think this is a really good matchup. Like I said, now it's going to be an epic venue and phenomenal in all areas. It's a tough place to play and really a tough place to win. But we've been there before. We've seen it all. All the Pac-12 stadiums, and we played other non-cons that are big opponents. So, I think from that standpoint, it's manageable. I don't think it's going to be anything overwhelming. It's a televised game nationally. And we got our coach. He's purchased 150, maybe 200 tickets for his friends and families. That's cool. Underdogs, big time, ranked opponent. This is just a perfect deal here. I think we got the roster and we're ready to go. And it looks like a perfect storm. I mean, very possible. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we won? I mean, nobody's really expecting us to win, but man, if we just came out of there with a victory, that would be just amazing. So hopefully they're not taking us too seriously. As far as the Badgers, their defense was arguably the best in the FBS last year. I mean, they were the best in defense. Several key players departed. They've left, but they've just reloaded, and they finished first in FBS last year in total defense at 239 allowed yards per game, and their rushing defense like 65 yards per game. So they held opponents to just 16 points, okay, ranking 4th or 5th nationally in those categories. So they're just really good, Traditionally, they have an exceptional defensive front, and they're led by their outside linebacker, Nick Herbig, and who had 9 sacks last year, earned second-team All-American, and Kano Benton, also a preseason All-American. So they got guys, really good guys, but mainly Braylon Allen, and the chance of stopping him. We're not going to stop him all the time, but we got to just contain him. And he's got great NFL draft prospects. Quarterback, Graham Mertz, we talked about him. It's his 3rd year. He's played many times at Big Ten, big houses all around, up and down the schedule. 3 years now. He's played at every single stadium, full, packed. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. So, that's what you got to realize, And then, Dickert, back to Jake Dickert, born and raised in Wisconsin, mainly grew up in the northeast part of the state, but 100 miles away from Madison, and diehard Badger fan as a kid. He remembers attending games at Camp Randall, and his family and friends still reside. So many of them live in Wisconsin, and they watch every Coug football game. He's got a huge following. Like I said, he's purchased over 150 tickets, somewhere around 150, maybe 200. A lot of tickets that he's purchased for family and friends. Nakia Watson's going to be returning. He was a Badger, and he transferred through the portal from Wisconsin, and he sat right behind Max Borghi and Deion McIntosh last year. So he's waiting, and it's been a long time since we played this kind of big name non-con magnitude, excluding bowl games. It's been a long time. The last time the Cougs played a significant, non-con that wasn't in a bowl game was Auburn. In 2013, we just barely lost to Auburn 31-24. That was with Leach. And, over the years, Ohio State, Notre Dame, but I think there's a home and home with Wisconsin too on our schedule that they're going to have to honor. So hopefully they're going to. Anyway, it's all fun. It's going to be great. It's a 12:30 rock and roll Saturday. How about that? What a great national Big Fox. This is going to be a lot of fun. Hey, that's it for episode 2 of the season 7 of the Podcast Coug. Thanks so much for listening. It's Washington State at Wisconsin. God bless and go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.